Hello and welcome to Alchemist Whim. I am Alchemist Jen. Thanks for joining me on this fine day. Today's whim of the day is to talk a bit about my dyeing adventures, because I don't really have much to show for them right now. They're wet or in progress. So, and then I'm going to knit while I do that. So I'll keep working on my scarflet. I keep on wanting to call it shawlet, but it's just a scarflet. I'll get it in there, and then I'll start working on a shawlet, and I'll call it a scarflet. Just how brains work, right? So I did a bunch of dyeing in the last little bit, and I've got a bunch more to do. So I'm dyeing yarn, and the yarn that I set up last night was tubes, the machine knitted tubes of wool yarn. And what I did is I laid them out, the tubes out on saran wrap, and then I stuck the powdered dye on it. The tubes were pre-soaked with citric acid, so they were wet going into the dye addition. And then I added some just regular water to help move around the dye. So I just had a squeeze bottle on top of the powder dye, and was able to add liquid to it so that I could squeeze it, and then it would end up kind of spreading the dye. So I learned a lot through this process. This is the first time I've done that. And so what I learned was if I add too much water to the packet, so when I take a long section of this tube and then I roll it up just like a burrito and then tuck it all in with some extra saran wrap, it creates a kind of a capsule, but like a cinnamon roll capsule. And so what I learned was that in doing that, I also created like an area where the dye would pool because it would have extra water in that area. So think of it as a cinnamon roll capsule, this long kind of pill-shaped thing, and then I stick that pill shape up kind of orientation inside of a steamer basket with like 5 other ones of those. So when there is a lot of liquid in that capsule, the liquid's going to go to the bottom. So what I ended up having was some of the dye, the excess dye in that capsule pooled through the other stripes that were happening. So I ended up with some fascinating dyes, but not necessarily what I had intended. So I learned a lot. I love what I came out with, but some of them ended up being more stripy than others due to how that worked out. So super fascinating. These are going to be just fun to look at after the fact. I'm contemplating doing like kind of pre-photos of them and having like a color photo with it. I was even slightly tempted to get Polaroids and take it with the shot, but I feel like with this game, but I feel like that's a little bit too far. It'd be dorky and fun, yes, but I think it's a little too far. So I might be able to do some photos of something, of what it looks like when it was in the tube form, but I still want to put it into a skein form so it's easy for whoever's going to make something with it to use it. So those are my thoughts on how to package and process that. They're all quite unique, and especially since this is my first time doing this method and trying to figure out how to go forward doing it more. So like I said, I learned so much from this, and I had such a blast. It was really, I just kept it relaxing and kept it pretty chill, and it was very nice. So definitely one I want to do again. I think the most complex and time-consuming part of the whole thing was making the tubes. The end process was very satisfying and fun, and then I'm going to enjoy seeing how the skeins wind up too. So that was that dyeing, and then the other dyeing was I got some more of this cotton and wool yarn, and then I've got it set up on an ice dye. So you'll see some, if you want to go check them out, some photos on Instagram with both the tubes and the ice dyeing process too, of things that I've done in the last little stretch. So I have 10 skeins of the cotton and wool, and I was able to split it up into 3 sections. So I essentially have 1 batch of 4 and 2 of 3, and then I've got them in buckets, and then I pre-soak those. The mordant is soda ash. It's a cold dye, not a warm dye. So the soda ash sits in with this different dye that works better with plant fibers. Then we're kind of focusing on that. It ends up dyeing really well. This is kind of an example of what that looks like with ice dye. So I'm doing the same process that I did with that because I really enjoy just the funness of the color. So I used 3 dyes just like I did with this one, and just kind of created thirds over a pile of skeins. And then pre-soaking it allows there to be extra liquid in there, so when the ice starts to melt, it's already got some liquid, so it's still going to adhere right away. And then it needs to sit for at least 24 hours before a wash, so that it has time to cure. So there's a portion where the dye is connecting with the fiber, and then there's a time for curing, which helps create that bond and makes the dye and the fibers really happy. So yay for science. Definitely felt like a scientist this evening as I was running around doing that stuff and wearing a respirator and nitrile gloves and measuring stuff out, and so very satisfying. And then just fun to see all the different colors. It felt like a nice colorful evening, and those are the best kinds. So I just wanted to give you an update there. I also have some more yarn that I'm going to be dyeing tomorrow. So for that, probably going to work on getting it set up to soak in the morning. I'm just trying to see how tired I think I'm going to be tomorrow night, after being up later tonight and having to get up early in the morning. So I think if I feel like I am not too completely exhausted, then I will go ahead and set up a soak on the yarns that I have ready to go. And what I'll do is make it as easy as possible. I do I kind of can pre-set up the certain areas and set up the pans, for instance, with my pre-soak going, rather than doing it in a bucket and then moving it to a pan. And I like it adds extra steps, but a couple minutes here and there cuts down the overall time, especially when you're talking about a couple hours or more for dyeing. So that's what's up today. We're talking about dyeing. Just some good progress, making some good strides. Lots of dyeing going on. And then after I do these batches of yarns, I really need to work on some fabric things. So I've got this fabric behind me here. I've had it for a very long time. I haven't done anything with it other than use it for a backdrop. So I think I want to switch that out, be able to maybe cycle through some different other backdrops for a bit, and then just dye up some fresh fabric so that I can make some more tapestries. So I can have multiple purposes to things, and that'll give just a lot more fun. So thanks for listening to me today ramble about my projects and dyeing. We'll see where the whim takes us tomorrow, or later today, as it were, truthfully. So I hope you have a good one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.